8 simple rules for a better overall rank. I've decided this year to write some rules up to see if I can try and increase my rank for next year. But, what if my rules are rubbish? So I've decided to bring on some top managers to help me discuss it and dissect it. And what better manager to have than Lateriser, who is here with us today. How's it going, man? Thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure, Dave. Happy to be here. Excited to talk about the rules, and I'm doing this sort of impromptu, so I'm looking forward to either rubbishing them or agreeing with them.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're looking for. I don't want compliance, I want discussion.
Yeah.
We'll just go right through them. And but first I just want to say congratulations on another amazing finish. How many is that now? So top 1 in India twice and top 200 3 times?
That's top 200 twice.
Wow. And obviously people should know, but it's like that Martial captaincy which really like sparked you into the stratosphere for last year's heroes. And I'm so excited that you could be here to rip these rules apart, hopefully, because we need, the classic analyst and then we need the maverick, and I feel like you definitely cover that second role.
Yeah,
well.
but people, it's a little bit of a misconception though, because I'm not so much of a maverick. I just I do that once in a while, and it does pay off, but like most of my other team is quite safe, so it's not always just being maverick, for the sake of being maverick. It's about being balanced and then taking some well calculated gambles.
All right, okay. Well, what we'll do is we'll start and then we'll see how far we get before we butt heads a little bit. How about that?
Sounds good.
Perfect. Okay, so rule number 1, no hits. So taking as few as possible. Obvious caveats being injuries or suspensions, but the basic rule is not to take any hits, just to make up for some bad planning on our part. What's your experience with hits the last couple of seasons?
Last couple of seasons, maybe the last 3 or 4 seasons, I average about 15 to 16 hits a season.
Wow, that's actually quite high.
I take them in bucket loads, but there is a little bit of reasoning behind them. Obvious caveats apply when it comes to, your injuries and all that. Mm-hmm. But I don't mind taking hits for premium big hitters, and I don't mind taking hits for captaincies. Even if I'm, taking a hit to get a strong premium big hitter, especially if he's a differential for a single game week as well, I'm happy to take that hit, because the thinking in my head is that the net negative is 4 points plus whatever the person you're selling is scoring, and the net positive, if you're captaining, has a potential to be 40 points. So, if you keep persisting with this and you get more than 50% of your decisions right, you're doing well.
Yeah, you're in the positive.
And then one other thing, that I like about hits, especially early season, is that there's people don't think about the butterfly effect. So if you're taking hits, and you're ahead of the crowd in terms of the ideal team that you're supposed to have, then it allows you to make luxury moves. Attacking moves week on week. Otherwise, you're constantly just trying to, first aid kit your team, making sure that it's at least fine, and you're not able to make these aggressive attacking moves. So I like, people don't think about the butterfly effect in terms of being ahead of the crowd in terms of an ideal team enough.
Wow. Yeah, you're right, because I've never thought of that. So it means basically jumping in and doing some defensive hit taking early on to get the players that, everyone has, making sure that you're all set so that in 5 to 6 game weeks, when you want to make those aggressive captain changes and those hits to bring in those, 40 plus ceilings, you're able to do so without trying to still fight fires week to week.
Exactly.
It took one rule and we're already there ripping up the game sheet for me. I love that.
No, but it's not for everyone, right? I mean, as long as you have a plan in mind. So last season, my plan was to change the big hitters consistently. Now all of that goes out of the window if Messi is joining Manchester City. Yeah. You sort of have like a perma captain. And then the thinking for FPL strategy this season goes upside down, because you start looking at more value buys, etc. The kind of guys that can stick in your team for a long time. And you're not really taking hits or shifting around captaincy too much, because you always have Messi to fall back on. So you have to react to what the FPL ecosystem is throwing at you.
Right, so it's about being flexible and being able... And well, that comes back to the fact that we've already got our team sorted with a couple of hits game weeks 1 to maybe 4. which means
Yeah.
we can then start reacting as opposed to,
Yeah.
trying to still fight all those fires. Wow.
Exactly. And I like doing it early season because I feel like you have a long time for the hits to pay off, So I'm not against it early season. I'm not against playing aggressively early season.
Perfect. All right. Rule number 2 then. Have a core team with price points. So this is based on Joe from Fantasy Football Scout, having a balanced price point for each position. So it's easy to navigate to any player in the game with at most 2 transfers. And it's an assumption that your picks at the very start in Game Week 1 will need to be changed. And it's all about that flexibility. Do you use price points inadvertently or otherwise?
I don't use price points, but what I have done, or what I do think, is it's a slight extension of what Joe talks about. And basically what I did do last season is I made sure I don't spend too much in defense, and I made sure I don't spend too much on the bench. So what essentially happens after that, whether you're doing price points or not, is most of your money is jam-packed in your 7 attackers, right?
Okay.
And when you do have that sort of a structure where your defense is in place, you don't need to touch it, and you're not spending too much money there, you're able to shift from 2 attackers to other 2 attackers pretty flexibly. It's about making sure that you're not spending a lot of money in defense, or you're not spending a lot of money on the bench, so that it allows you flexibility to be aggressive in the money-making position.
So, for example, with this season, we're going to see an extremely high percentage owned for Trent. Is he maybe the only person that you would go for in defense, and then have everyone else just really, really low price so that you can spend all that money up front?
My thinking is that, and I've just thought about it, the thinking is that if we have this abundance of captaincy options in play, then yeah, I like the structure of having Trent and then cheap defenders. But if we do have Messi, who's offering us a permanent captaincy option, then again your thinking needs to change, and you need to start finding value players. And there aren't as many good value players in attack as there are in defense. The kind of players like Laporte, Robertson, they start entering my thinking as well, because they offer bang for buck in terms of value. So again, I'm trying to be reactive here, but if we don't have the exceptional transfer happening, I don't like spending too much in my defense. And I see there's so much value in your 4.5 defenders anyway this season. The likes of Taylor are stick and forget. I like the look of Dyer or Ben Davies at 5 million from a Spurs defense.
Yeah,
I think Mourinho is making sure he's stamping his thought process on his team, and they've looked good defensively post restart. So yeah, I like those players.
I like that. So it's not necessarily a core team with price points all over the pitch. You tend to just strip away money from your defense and shove it forward, hoping that the bang for your buck players that you can get in defense are enough to keep a reasonable level throughout the season.
Exactly.
All right, okay. And what do you make of that part in the rule that says core team? So having a core team, not changing any players. Do you tend to have the same maybe 6 core players at the end of the season, or is everyone up for the chop for you?
Everyone's up for a chop. I mean, I don't determine if some player is going to stick in my team throughout the season. I mean, you do think about that at the start of the season. The only player who I can see lasting the entire season for me is Trent. But even if he's not performing, if the Liverpool defense starts underperforming, if Robertson starts matching him for 0.5 million less, then I will pay attention to everything. I like having no rules and being flexible and reactive. So yeah.
All right, okay. So, rule number 1, disagree. Rule number 2, disagree.
No,
I love
rule
it.
number 2, somewhat agree.
Yeah, okay. Well, there's some caveats. I figured that this was going to be the case, but it's really great talking through it.
Yeah.
Number 3, simple captain choices. I'm excited about this one. So no outside the box captains, sticking to your premiums and going with the majority unless there's multiple options presented. Obviously, we all know about the captaincy choices that paid off for you last year. But what is your overall strategy in regards to captaincy?
I look for obvious, good-looking home banker fixtures for the big hitters and try to find my captaincy picks there. I sort of consciously make an effort to not look at ownership or not have that in my thinking, or I don't look at captaincy polls when I'm making my captaincy decision, because I feel like it acts against my instinct. So I really want to make instinctive captaincy decisions based on what I'm watching on Match of the Day and what I'm seeing in my stats. And that's how I like deciding my captaincy option. And then once I've thought about it, and when I have a couple of options in my head, that's when I'll see, okay, this player is highly owned, this player is not highly owned. And if it's a 50-50 decision, I quite like going with the guy who's not highly owned, because the upside is higher, right? It leads to a bigger green arrow, which can in some cases be season defining. So
yeah, we'll talk about last season with the Salah Mane. Salah was not as highly owned as Mane, and then he went and got himself injured during that double game week. And anyone who would, I'm assuming, did you go for Salah in that game week as well because of that 50-50 choice?
Mane triple captain last season.
Oh, that's a gutter. Yeah. So you went against what you usually do, or was it not a 50-50 for you then?
I just went with the instinct, right? I thought Mane looked sharper in the last 2 games. I thought he got a bigger chunk of the big chances. So I just went with that, and it's okay. I didn't feel bad about it, because trust the process, because as much as I didn't hit that captaincy, I had 4 or 5 or 6 of such gambles that worked in my favor, trusting that process, which I do. So you don't look at one decision in isolation, and what happened was sort of unpredictable, right? The gap, Salah could have easily outscored Mane, but the gap wouldn't have been so big if both of them played the same amount of minutes in that double game week. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. It doesn't affect me. I'm happy to even talk about it. It's some things that happen in the game, and you shouldn't get emotionally affected by these things.
Well, that's a really good point that you've said there. You've kind of hit the nail on the head a little bit with the trust the process. So if you have this set up in that you never look at polls, you never look at outside influences, you go with your gut instinct on it, unless there's a 50-50, and then you jump on the lowest own for the higher green ceiling. Only then do you start looking at other things like, right, what is everyone else doing? Just only to calculate your I guess, potential for that week to see if it is something that everyone's picked or not.
Exactly. And then a tip I would have for managers is that if you're too worried about a big red arrow when you're going against the grain, just own the player that is going to get highly captained, and the damage limitation will happen that way, right? Because you do have 100% effective ownership for that player, even though you're not captaining him. So there's more to gain and less to lose if you have this sort of insurance.
Right, okay, so that's a really good caveat. So if you are going to go against the grain, or you find yourself after your gut instinct has been, you choose a certain captain, as long as you have that other captain in your roster, then it means that you can sleep easy at night, kind of deal.
Exactly.
All right, I like that a lot. I'm learning so much. Rule number 3, we're already my mind's turning, I'm looking at my team already. I love this. All right, okay, so number 4 then, wild card with a plan. What is your basic take? I know this year's a little bit different with the wild card, but what is your basic strategy when it comes to them?
So the second wild card I normally use around the chips and double game week season. Yeah. That's standard, and that opens up, and it's very subjective depending on how that part of the season plays out. Yeah. But I'd say 4 seasons out of the last 5 I've wildcarded early, because again, the window of opportunity in terms of the new players that open up, the form players, you kind of figure out who the Lundstrom of the season is, who's the Cantwell of the seison. Yeah. These things happen in the first 3 or 4 game weeks, and there's a lot of price movement, right, happening. So I quite like wildcarding early into the season by game week 3, 4, 5. If you are able to spot the opportunities and you feel like those trends that you spotted are going to last. But you need to think macro when you are wildcarding in terms of team structure. Okay. What people do when they do wildcard, and I have no qualms wildcarding early, is they pick the good players. But when you're wildcarding and you're taking time out to build a completely new team, this is the last time you're going to build a team for the next 15 game weeks, presumably, right? So you need to start thinking about what kind of a strategy you want to implement. What are the premium big hitters only dominating from 2 teams? Is Salah having a Salah season, etc., etc.? Then you start thinking about price points, structure, and all of that. So I like planning my wildcard once I do it, but I'm very opportunistic when it comes to my wildcard, and it's also a case of more often than not, our game week 1 teams are shots in the dark. Yeah. So I feel like this season the opportunity. The reason to wildcard early is higher than most seasons, but I do it anyway. So yeah, that's my thinking on wildcard. Don't plan for it, because the shot in the dark that you take in game week 1 can work, right? It can work in your favor. So if that's the case, then take aggressive hits. But wildcard early if you spot opportunities and you feel like you're 5, 6, 7 moves away from your ideal team. I like having the ideal team early season so that it gets you into a good flow early season.
And then we get back to that point where you can start taking aggressive attacking hits later on when we want to build, when we want to build, a new captaincy or whatever.
Exactly. And the thing is that you need to pay attention to your defense a lot and your bench a lot and your 6th and 7th attacker a lot while you're wildcarding. They need to be kind of guys who you don't want to move around too much, right? Who are your safe plays, who you feel like they'll tick along the season. So yeah, that's what you think about.
And I have to ask, because obviously this season's a little bit different. We've got a couple blanks game week 1, and we also potentially have those blanks being played game week 18, 19, if you're following Ben Krellin. Are you still going to be going with that early wild card and trying to plan your way around those, or are you going to maybe hold it for a little bit longer just to see?
I feel like if come game week 3 or game week 4, my team is my ideal team in my head is far away from where I want it to be, I wouldn't hesitate to wildcard, even though we have a double game week, etc. I feel like a blank and a double game week is 2 game weeks that might earn you or lose you 20 points. I feel like if you're wildcarding early in the season and you're getting a better team ahead of the crowd for 10 to 15 game weeks, you're still aiming and trying to gain 60, 70, 80 points over the crowd if you're early, right? This can pay off if you get it right. So I wouldn't really worry about 2 game weeks as much if I'm able to gain an advantage over 15 game weeks, which is the period until December.
Yeah, perfect. Trust in the process, isn't it?
Trust in the process.
Trust in the process. Yeah. All right, so we're about halfway through. I've actually learned so much. It's been really, really good for me. We're going to take a quick, tiny break and hear a message from our sponsor, and we'll be right back.
David, this better be good, mate.
James, have I got the product for you, right? FPL Merch is doing a Kickstarter for his mug.
Dave, you sent me a text a few minutes ago saying, can I call urgent, full stop. I said that I was on a date, but if it's absolutely urgent, you can. And this is what it is.
Yeah, but it's a collection of top-ranking mugs for those who have had an unforgettable season, right, and want something to show for it. So if you finish in the top 100k or 1%, then you qualify and you can have one of these awesome mugs to show everyone.
No, this one is actually isn't funny because she's literally waiting for me in the other room and actually had to apologise and excuse myself so I could take this call. And this is what it is. You're such a fucking idiot, honestly.
Do you think she wants to buy a mug?
I'm going to have to go back in now and tell her what it was.
Ask her if she wants a mug.
I actually said to her, I said, he never texts me because you don't. You usually WhatsApp, you texted me. I was so worried. I said, he never does this.
Does she play FPL?
No, she doesn't play FPL. She's fucking... I'm going, unless there's anything actually important you need to discuss.
Twitter.com/FPL Merch.
You're fucking bellend.
He's hung up. All right, rule number 5, template team to start. So that is a core team with differentials who have proven themselves in the Premier League and waiting a few weeks to see who is actually nailed, as opposed to picking a bunch of differentials and, as you said, shots in the dark. So this kind of plays into that chat we were having previously. But what is your... Do you have a certain split in your head when you're thinking of a template team? How do you kind of differentiate in that regard?
Doesn't enter my thinking.
No?
Not at all. I feel like... and even then, the template, my team ends up being very similar to the template team, but that's okay because the crowd isn't stupid, right? They're making correct decisions. But I don't try to look at who's owned high or what the template is right now. If Salah merits picking over Mane game week 1, which he does, then go with Salah based on merit, not because he's owned by everybody else. If KDB merits selection over Sterling game week 3, which is kind of debatable, do go with the person who you think merits picking. I don't like picking based on ownership or template or any of that.
So you just use your own gut instinct plus your
Instinct
stats and everything
and
else.
fixtures. I mean, game week 1, all you have is fixtures. So I try to make a fixture-focused game week 1 team, which is focusing on the first 4 or 6 fixtures.
Right. And then after that, you'll use whatever metric you can to make your decisions afterwards, as opposed to just looking at the template of the day.
Yeah, but I do have like a general price structure in my head where I do make sure I have 2 to 3 captaincy options in my team. So like currently I have 2 big hitting midfielders and 2 big hitting forwards in my team at the moment. So it kind of adds to flexibility because you've got a lot of money spent in these 4 players as well. So you can downgrade them and add to your squad as and when you feel like.
Right. Okay. And that also flows into your whole, if you don't have the right team, you can wild card, and if you do pick the right shots in the dark, as you said, then it doesn't take very much to transfer down the way to any player that you want because you have those high price points.
Exactly. And keeping, another tip for managers is if you're really worried about the blanks and the double game weeks coming in game week 18, 19, I'd encourage managers to take hits early season so that you're closer to the ideal team, which allows you to play a little more aggressively.
Right. Okay. Taking the hits at the start so that you can maybe still keep that wild card for later on. I gotcha. All right. Amazing. So the next one I've just kind of thrown in here as an obvious, it was obvious to me, so let's see what you think of it. Rule number 6, minimal goalkeeper transfers. So goalkeepers are for the long haul, 10 game weeks or more, and any transfer you're doing for goalkeepers should usually fall within a wild card week.
Agree.
Yeah?
No complaints.
No?
Yeah, agree. Set and forget always. I'd go as far as saying that I actually prefer having a single goalkeeper over rotating ones because I feel like if you're going with a cheap 4-5 or 5-0 goalkeeper, more often than not they get their double figure hauls against good teams where they're defending for their lives and they manage to keep a clean sheet. In such cases, your goalkeeper's had about 7, 8, 9 saves. He's in the bonus conversation against good teams as well. So you don't want to miss out on these big hauls for cheap goalkeepers as well. And it's also not having another decision to make, which might or might not work in your favor every week. So I always, Button was the only player who stayed in my team for 38 game weeks last season, except for the free hit and the double game week. So yeah.
Right, so you keep it simple and as much as possible. Did you have Pope for the entire season? How many goalkeepers did you actually have, and who did you pick?
I had 2 or 3, I think. I started the season with Pope last season, and for the most part of the second half, I had McCarthy as my keeper, I think. So yeah.
So you just changed it once outright and then kept
once.
Kept it
I think
going.
when I wildcarded or something of that sort. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Perfect. All right. So that's at least we agree on one outright. No caveats needed. I like that.
Yep.
Okay. Rule number 7: no team bias. So this is something that I don't really struggle with. I only support teams in the Scottish Premier League. But do you have a team that you support outright that you can't get away from? I know obviously you're a Man United fan.
Correct.
But do you struggle with that?
No, but I get very excitable about Manchester United pretty early,
right?
Which worked in my favor last season. I got in Bruno Fernandes before he even played a minute of football in the Premier League. Yeah, I was early on him and it worked in my favor. I had Martial for most part last season. I didn't have him just post restart when he hit form. I held on to him for long parts of the season. And again, that worked in my favor. He's my highest scoring FPL player last season. So yeah, I when we're playing well, I do get excitable about us. But I think I'm all right in making the differentiation in terms of when we are playing well and we aren't. And I don't get too emotional about Man United when it comes to FPL. So I'm okay.
Right, okay. And how would you, if you were going to give someone a tip or give someone advice on not being biased, say for example they've got 3 West Brom players in their team, or they never ever bring a Leicester player in because they absolutely hate them, like what would you say to those types of managers?
Do it if you're playing for fun and not for overall rank.
Right, okay.
If you want to compete and if you want to play for overall rank, fair enough. But if you're doing it just for fun, I mean, do it. You're having fun. Go on.
All right, easy enough. Don't do it if you care about your rank, basically.
Yeah.
All right, okay. All right, rule number 8, the last one we'll come to, and it's no mini league focus. So I've thrown this one in again just as an easy finisher. Countering mini leagues is bad practice. Looking at someone ahead of you or below you in your mini league just adds a little bit more conflict of interest to your game. If your goal is to win your mini leagues, then fair enough. But if it is to get a better overall rank, and that's why we're here, 8 simple rules to get a better overall rank, then leave your mini leagues alone. What do you think? How's your mini leagues doing these days?
I mean, good. But I agree with that rule. Never ever look at other teams and let that influence your thinking. Yeah, I feel like 90% of the reason you pick your team has to be on what you see. Whether it's highlights, whether it's stats, make it based on that. Don't make it based on external environmental influences. The only exception to this rule, I'd say, is if you're in a mini league and you're chasing your opponent 3 or 4 game weeks at the end of the season.
Right.
That's the only point at which you start looking at that. But even then, I'd say that the best chance of you beating your opponent is if you don't look at his team and you're making your decisions based on what you see.
Okay. Yeah. So pretty much the exact same thing.
Yeah.
All right. So that's us come to the end of the list. I think we've definitely agreed on 2. There's been quite a few caveats for others, and then others that you've absolutely ripped the rule book apart for me. Is there anything that you think that I've absolutely missed that you hold dear that you do every single season? Is there anything that you can think of?
Don't have fear of ownership.
Right. Explain. What do you mean? How do I do that? That's hard.
Don't look at it. Just don't look at those numbers. Trust the process. What you are seeing when you're watching the games or when you're watching match of the day isn't wrong. So just trust that instinct and process. Make decisions based on what you see, not based on FPL.com, click player, look at ownership percentage. Don't do that. It's not the fun way or the right way of playing this game.
All right, perfect. That goes against a lot of like what I have been doing in the past, so that's something I'm definitely going to try to do more of this season. And a perfect way to end the episode. Thank you so much for coming on and spreading some of that wisdom. I really appreciate it. I've definitely learned a lot, and I hope anyone listening has as well. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Cheers. This has been fun. I actually quite enjoyed it. It was nice and different to what everybody else is doing. I had a good time.
Thank you so much, and I'll definitely speak to you again. Cheers.
Cheers.